You're listening to the Wolverine and the Warthog, Chronicles of the Wild podcast. Two hunters from opposite ends of the earth, united by instinct, driven by the wild. These are our stories. All right, guys, welcome back to the Wolverine and the Warthog. Again, coming at you from Trader's Rendezvous here. And we have some hot topics today. Some interesting topics we're going to cover. And one we really want to go over, and we have a lot of experience with this on both sides of it, is ethics on public land. Things you should do, things you shouldn't do. Things you should be watching out for other people doing. So let's get this thing rolling. You got any thoughts about that before we start?
Well, the topic that was pitched was there are no ethics on public land.
Yeah. But is there? I think Andy and I are of similar minds here. But let's just start out talking about something simple, okay? Glassing. Would you sit within 100 yards of someone glassing a basin, a draw, a whatever?
This is a complex topic.
It is.
And it depends on a lot of variables. It could depend on the species, how good the tag is, the state you're in. We talking like turkeys and whitetail out east, or are we talking like western big game? You know what I mean? We're talking about everything. But
yeah.
we're going to have to quantify that because the goalpost is going to move a little bit depending on what that is, right?
Then let's go specific scenarios here. Okay, so you're in the Colorado high country and you see someone glassing a basin that you just walked into for 4 miles. What are you going to do?
Yeah, you preface that better. I think the key there is some timing, right? It's like who was there first, and that can happen before even glassing occurs, right? There can be remote basins that you get into and you've been there and you set up all afternoon, and the very first morning you're glassing, and then someone else turns up. So I think timing's a factor for me. If someone else is in there first, right, you kind of have to give them preference to that. The other variable that is a reality as well is opening day. Like you always get guys show up mid-morning opening day or hike in the ridgeline. I remember one time spending huge amount of effort to get into a high country basin here for mule deer, set up my tent, concealed, do all the prep, to have some guys come in that very evening, completely expose themselves in the basin, getting their tent and everything set up. And then the very next morning, right, wake up like 2 hours before sunrise, get all our stuff organized, prep everything, sneak in unskylined along the ridge, get into a position to glass, start glassing. I'm watching the whole morning unfold. We got bucks down here. We had a whole herd of elk. We had a bunch of stuff happening. Well, next minute, just elk are running everywhere. The deer are spooked and everything. I'm thinking like, what on earth happened, And I look back and there's just like 4 dudes, like peak skyline, like right at the head of the basin. I mean, as exposed as you could get, just blew out like the entire head of a basin, right? And there's some anger comes into that. There's
Absolutely.
also some of it where you kind of like, maybe they don't know. That for one, like that, and that wasn't necessarily an ethics question of they may not have known I was there, and so I've got no problem with them having coming in post the fact that I'm sitting there glassing. It was more just like, man, I mean, we've had guys, same thing as someone like walking into a spot with the wind to their back, just blowing out the middle of all, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, so.
And there could be, that is a possibility. I don't think it's, I think it happens the other way most of the time where people, they're not trying to screw you, but they're wanting to put their name in the hat as far as that goes. And this is something that's really important to talk about because, like you said, are there ethics on public land? And we would agree that there are, but it also depends on the individual, right? Everybody has to be held to their own standard of ethics by you. No one holds you to those ethics but you, but it's what you can do, be comfortable doing in that situation.
Yeah, and I think that's broader than just it being on public land. You either have a set of ethics that you abide by and hold yourself to, or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think that applies across probably all aspects of life to some degree.
Yeah.
You know, the public land is one where you're hoping someone shares an ethic with you, right, or is respectful enough to do that. You know that.
But
yeah,
like
and
you
it's
said, things change too. So let me put this into okay. So let's on that one. That was a deer tag that you were just talking about, where they skyline blew the whole base. Now, okay. Now, what if you have an archery deer tag, and the governor's tag is in that same basin that you are with a gun during bow season?
It doesn't really matter necessarily.
You're there first.
If I'm there first, yeah, then I'm gonna want to hunt it. I just depend, you know. I guess it depends how the scenario unfolds, you know.
Yeah. Because you're going to talk to that guy, hopefully, ideally, right?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes it can be an advantage to communicate with somebody. I mean, there's a. I got two sides of this, right? And I've been on both sides of the fence. There was a time where I probably went 3 ways. Initially, I talked to people, right?
Yeah.
But in a very trusting way, right? Where I was open, I was a bit more trusting, and ultimately it didn't actually help. Took it taken advantage of, or you know, it just didn't help. Then I took the perspective of like, I'm talking to nobody, right? The problem I found was there is actually a benefit to talking to some people in the right manner, and I also found that some people avoid you to avoid their ethics getting questioned, right? Whereas like if you have a man-to-man discussion with someone and someone says, hey, I am specifically targeting this deer. I've been here for 3 or 4 days. This is my aim.
Are you going to hunt it?
Yeah, right?
Like,
and have them answer
out.
the question as opposed to them basically be like, no harm, no foul. I'm not going to look at you. I'm just going to pretend you didn't exist.
Yeah.
And so it's easier for them to break an ethic, right? So there's that perspective. So I kind of, then what I started doing was a middle ground of basically being a bit more upfront, but this also takes some confidence, right? It takes confidence in yourself and just a bit more experience over time where, and lots of issues, right? Where you've had issues and they've festered with you for a while, where you're like, that was a really shitty thing that person did, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, I wish I'd have said something, you know? And they may not have known any different. I'd rather know for sure what your intentions are rather than guess after the fact. So now I'm at this point where like, if someone does something bad, I'll have a discussion with them on it and try to get on the same page. It doesn't necessarily change the outcome, but you just know where your chips are.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good lesson for anybody that, you know, is coming out here and hunting public land. Be upfront with people. You got to get your answer out of people. And sometimes they're a little caught off guard because people are way more likely to just not say anything. And so if you're very direct to them.
Well, there's also, there's a time where, for example, like they will not tell you anything, but then you tell them your intention and you stick to it, right? There's been times where I've also done that, you know, where it's like, well, I intend to hunt the head of that basin. That's where I'm going to be hunting. And then they give you no information back, whether they're going to compete with you or not, or hunt somewhere different or not.
Yeah.
So what? Then you just get on with it, right?
Yeah.
But you've at least set your intention there.
Yeah.
And I think it is harder for that person to then really ruin your hunt after the fact but having known that, you know.
It's very important how you phrase that also. This conversation with somebody, you cannot be a dick about it because that's just going to make them want to compete with you more, right? So taking on a respectful but direct tone.
Of course, yeah. And I'm actually fully respectful.
Yeah.
It's
Just
really not
important to
confrontational at all. It shouldn't be confrontational. I think you should be able to just talk to people in the woods, at the trailhead, in the parking lot. And I think there's a mixed bag of being honest and upfront, but also not divulging everything, right? You're not, there's going to be some specifics you're going to keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And so So yeah, and we've had lots of encounters. You know, you've hunted here since you grew up, and it's definitely a different factor for me coming from South Africa and Australia, where primarily you're hunting private property. So you just have this just doesn't occur. You know,
Yeah.
whereas here it's a real factor, and it's actually just a complete reality. You're going to be competing with other people on public land, and there's a lot of trade-offs, right? There's a lot of great benefits to it, and there's lots of downsides.
The beauty and the beast of public land.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing, but there's things that we have to deal with that, you know, back east hunters, whitetail hunters, private land hunters don't have to experience. So there's a lot of give and take there. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting one, right? And it ebbs and flows from seasons. You know, you've got some guys who've got access to private properties, and we have access to private properties for certain things. Killing an animal on a private property without those pressures is not necessarily easier or hotter, but comparing the two, you can't. You know, we've had discussions with people who've been like, yeah, man, I've killed a bunch of 300-inch bulls on this kind of place. And it's like, well, I'm telling you, killing a 300-inch bull in our public land here is a feat in itself.
Yeah.
It's very difficult because there are just lots of compound effects that having other hunters there, educating, disturbing the elk, changing their patterns, you have to change how you hunt.
Yeah.
Completely.
But then it's also difficult if you have 300 acres of private land, that's actually a detriment to you as far as your accessibility. So if you get a private land only tag in the Gunnison Basin where we live, it is a detriment because you can't hunt that much space, right? So if you kill a 300-inch bull on your 300 acres of property, I mean, that elk was living on public 3 hours before that, you know what I mean? But you don't have the pressure.
Yeah, especially
of
an
people on
animal
you.
with a bigger range like a mule deer and an elk in this type of country, yeah, as opposed to your whitetail in some places where, you know, some bucks can hold up in a very small area.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but they can be there for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Whereas an elk will not stay in a small area like that for a prolonged period of time.
And that's what the whitetail hunters always ask. They're like, they either buy one or they ask about them, like, so-and-so's got this private land only tag for sale. And in their mind, that sounds great, right? That sounds like what they're used to. Like, I'm going to get 500 acres and these animals just living there and I'm going to get on them. And it's like, no, that's hay meadow. They're maybe there 6 days a year. And so, but in their minds, they see it as like a benefit. Oh, private land. But like you said, those animals aren't resident. So it definitely changes there.
Yeah, so the size of the property changes it.
Yeah.
Okay, so ethics on public land. Let's see. What other scenarios have we got in there? I mean, there's going to be people listening to this that have had some crazy encounters. And I have had some crazy encounters. Maybe we should just talk about.
Let's talk
about.
Not
crazy in the sense they just are what they are, right? And you just have to figure out how to deal with them. I mean, you'll get it at a trailhead, right?
Yeah.
You pocket a trailhead. There could be 2 trucks there. It could be 10 trucks there, right? And everyone's scattering off in their different directions. And you have to be kind of open-minded to some degree, right? Because there is some stuff like people have a pretty F-you attitude to someone competing with them in the woods, or they're set up on a specific spot. And then you've got somebody who maybe completely honestly is oblivious to it, and they come walking through the meadow or walking right along the skyline or something, you know, where someone really feels like they screwed them over. And I think they did screw them over, but not
intentionally.
Yeah, maliciously.
Yeah.
You know, not intentionally, exactly.
Let's give me one of like your least favorite encounter on public land.
I had a couple that bothered me. One was I guess one was up in the high country hunting mule deer. I took my dad up there. We camped, remote backpack trip, and my goal was to get dad onto something. We split up during the day and we'd kind of glass. And this was one of those ones where we hiked in there and we got to a basin and we were camping in this high country basin. This is prior to season. And a group had come in behind us, probably 3 or 4 hours. Once we'd set up camp and everything, we could see them coming in. and then and they stopped in that, they post up in the next basin. So the very next morning, it's opening morning, right? Get ourselves into a position, the light's coming up, sitting there glassing. I find some deer. There's 2 shooters in there. I'm thinking like, hey, this is going to be a great one for Dad. Like, but mule deer hunting, you have to be patient, right? It's not just like find it. And this is archery, by the way. So it's not just a case of like, find it and get in range.
Yeah.
It'll be very strategic about it. So we're sitting there and it's probably getting to about 9 o'clock in the morning. And at this point, they're getting close to where I think they're probably going to bed for the first time. And I'm already starting to strategize with Dad. Like, yeah, I think you can go like around the back of this here, out of sight, loop across the back here, cut back in, depending on where they bed, cut back in. Once we know where they're going to finally bed, but that's 90%. Like they're going to bed somewhere within a few hundred yards of the spot. So that's the big play to get yourself into position. Well, about 30 minutes later or so, I see the guys from the other basin had obviously been glassing their basin all morning, come up and over and into our basin. We're sitting in a very obvious spot, like lots of those big high country basins.
Yeah.
Some of them are massive, right? So you can fit lots of people in there. But this particular one was a fairly small basin, especially at the very head of it.
Okay.
You couldn't miss somebody sitting there.
Gotcha.
Not where we were, right?
Yeah.
You're exposed. And I see them come over. I'm thinking like, oh, it's interesting. I think they've got a
like
giant.
they're coming at you.
Well, they had a giant basin there, and I just figured like, well, you guys spend opening day there. We'll spend opening day here. We're the only 2 camps here. Now they're in our basin, right? They come all the way in. They end up probably like 200 yards from us, and they sit down and they start glassing. And I look over and I can see they're glassing the same deer we're glassing, right? And I kind of said to Dad, like, at this point, I think you need to kind of just stop making your way around, make it clear to these guys that we've bedded these deer down, we're watching them, and that you're going to make a play on them.
Yeah.
Because it could be reasonable that they would think like, hey, those are deer we would shoot. Like these guys are clearly not making a play at them,
Yeah.
And so anyway, he starts the process, and Dad wraps the basin. We're probably talking like 30 minutes, right? Wraps the basin. These guys come like another 100 yards closer, sit down again, glass again. I like look over and I can like see them, and they're kind of avoiding me. And I look back and I'm thinking like, okay, fine. I just said to Dad, like, when you get over to that spot and you get to this point, like signal up at me and I'll kind of give you some idea. And at this point, the buck had bedded, and so he makes his way over. Dad's making his play in. At this whole time, I'm thinking like, okay, great. Well, it's probably another, it takes Dad probably 35 minutes, right, to wrap around this and get into, might have even been 40 minutes, right? And now Dad's starting his stalk. He's got 2 bucks. They're kind of in the buck brush, so they're going to be fine to get close to. They're going to be really difficult to kill.
Okay.
They're just bedded in a big old patch of buck brush, right?
Okay.
So it's like you can get 30, but it's going to be hard to get a shot, even when they stand up. You know what that's like.
Yeah.
That stuff can be 5 feet tall.
Oh, yeah.
So he starts making a play. At this point, it's a little earlier than I would have done it. I probably would have waited another couple of hours at least, because the thermals are shifty until lunchtime, honestly. Sometimes not, but it is what it is. You have to make a play. And I kind of figured like stage off them for a while and then kind of, these guys will bugger off and do their thing. Well, anyway, next thing, here this guy comes walking all the way over to me. Big dude too, probably like 6'2", 6'3", big muscled guy. And he sits down right next to him like, hey man, how's it going? He's like, no, great, doing good. And I was like, how you guys doing? You guys behind that basin over there, And he's like, yeah, I didn't find anything in there. And I was like, okay, well, I'm here with my dad. Obviously, you've seen us. We bedded these bucks down. He's made a play at it, and he's in the stalk. I'm going to watch it over. He's like, yeah, we saw those. My buddy went in there too. He's just going to have a go at them as well. I was so taken off guard, right?
Yeah.
I was so caught off guard. I couldn't even it was hard to respond, to just be like, seriously?
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I'm more experienced now. I'm more confident now.
Yeah.
In that I'd be like, that's bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Like that's a sucky thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think I alluded to that, where I was kind of like,
but once again, he was direct, so it did catch you kind of off guard.
yeah, but I wasn't
Yeah.
it was and I said, well, how did he get down in there? He's like, oh, he cut down from where you saw us, last glassing. And I was like, well, how's he going to approach him? Knowing full well that where they came from, right, they couldn't get to those deer. And he's like, well, he's going to come in from the bottom and cut up them. And I was like, yeah, but the thermals are going uphill. And I don't know whether he just didn't know and where I was kind of like, I mean, he can't get above them and then come in with the wind. He's literally going to have the wind to his back. And he never responded. So I'm thinking, like, what on earth is going on, you know? And I think Dad had got kind of the picture at this point. Like, actually, he didn't. He didn't know at all about this the whole time. So he's
He
like
didn't know that guys.
making his play. Yeah. So he made his play, and I'm now looking for this dude. I'm thinking, like, what the fuck is this guy? You know, like, he's gonna blow the deer out as soon as they wind him. You know, it's freaking out of there. And I wish I could have communicated with the dad to like change his strategy. But basically be like, go to where these deer are gonna escape to. Like, they're gonna get bumped. So totally change your like sneak in and shoot one to like get into a position that when they get winded and jump up. And anyway, we sit through this thing. This guy gets the impression that, because I stopped talking to him, I'm like, well, I'm focusing on, you know, friggin' helping
And he's
Dad.
just, he's sitting
Dude, he was
next
sitting
to
right next to me with his spotting gear and everything, right? He got the picture that I wasn't fucking into this whole like just let's share the deer and see what comes out of it deal.
Yeah.
So he pushes off to another, like he goes back to almost like that 100-yard spot where he was. I'm sitting back, I'm looking a little bit, and then I hear like all these like rocks falling. And I look back, dude, and there's like huge rocks falling from where this guy is sitting. And to this day, I don't know whether he intentionally started kicking rocks off this cliff to like spook the deer.
Yeah, was
or
your dad getting
spook
close?
Yeah, they were at this point, I couldn't tell where the dude was, but Dad was probably like 40, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like, what the hell is this guy doing, you know? And of course, once they got to that point, Dad had seen, this is after the fact, everything occurred. Dad had like seen the bucks. He was still wanting to make like another like 10-yard play to get into this position when he saw the bucks like jump up, and he thought like, oh shit, I spooked him. Didn't know it was the guy below him, right? So he like gets in, couldn't get a shot. The deer like peel up out of there. They head out. Well, it's like at this point, like Dad like looks over, and there's a dude like 25 yards from him, this guy that just stands up. And Dad was like, what the hell? Like he was not, because he didn't know any of this was going
that about
on.
Makes you, I bet that freaked
I was
him
cross.
out.
I was pretty cross. Just,
Yeah.
you know, just kind of, anyway, he hiked all the way out, and then kind of, he told me his side of the story. Dad, you know, what he was like, what the hell did this guy come from? I said, it was those fucking guys that came over the ridge, saw us, and then just decided to just like make
Did
a
your
play
dad
right
have
with us.
Did he confront that guy?
No, he said
No.
that guy just like as soon as the deer ran away, that guy just turned away and just left. And Dad also was like, literally, I was like, that guy was just straight downwind of the deer. He's like, I didn't know they were there, that he was there. So there was that encounter.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean,
That
there's
was
a
the
lot
shitty
to
one. Yeah.
unpack in that one because it's, that's what we're talking about is.
But that
there
was
are
blatant.
no-
That
yeah,
was just
that's-
like a zero care given.
Yes.
That was just
Yes, and
which I'm not psyched about that.
you can't be that guy too. I mean, like we said, you have to be accountable for your own ethics. You know what I mean? Like, but don't be that guy. Seriously, that's just insane to do that. And we've had, we've had a lot of encounters like that. I think about the one where Andy and we packed into the wilderness, and we are at the trailhead, like where the road ends.
I totally forgot about that.
And we see some people. It's a lake at the trailhead, and we see some people fishing. It's just a little lake, and Andy and I are getting off our wheelers and getting guns off, or getting my gun off, getting our backpacks on. These people are scrambling, and we're like, what are they doing? We see some wall tents and stuff, and oh man, yeah, this is weird. And so they like rush out of the tent. They get ahead of us on the trail, and we're like, that's okay, because we're planning on going like 3 miles and then
They
peeling
didn't get
off.
ahead of us in the trail. They went to the trailhead trail start and stopped there, remember?
Yes.
And just stood there
Yes, yeah,
waiting for us. And I was probably like 20 yards behind you.
Yes, yeah,
So
I
that
forgot
actually
about
like
that.
blocked us. It
Yeah.
wasn't just a like ran out in front of us deal.
Yeah, and it ended up being two people that we had met in a restaurant 2 days before that. I had met them in a restaurant. They were super nice to talk to. I knew they had the same tag, and they were with an outfitter in there. And this outfitter's like this 6'4" ginger. And Andy, I remember when Andy was coming up behind me, he had his buff on like this. So I mean, they couldn't see anything. But I walked up, and I was like, oh, it's you guys. And they're like, we're hunting back here. And I was like, that's the wilderness area. Like, that is a massive wilderness area. And they're like, well, we've been camped here and we were here first and I shoot long range and this is where we're hunting. And Andy goes, guys, this is the trailhead. Like, this is where everybody has to start. Like, that's literally the
access to like
definition.
15 square miles of
more than that. I mean, it was like,
area.
I mean, yeah, the nearest town to that wilderness area is like 45 miles as the crow flies. I mean, it's massive. But they kind of get the picture that we're not gonna go anywhere else because the outfitter, he goes, have you ever hunted such and such creek? And I go, no. And he goes, well, why don't you go hunt such and such creek? I said, why don't you fucking go hunt such and such creek? And that's when they got the picture that we're not leaving. I was like, go ahead. I was like, you can start on the trail in front of us.
Well, they came out, remember, because I hadn't met them. I had only just got there and helped, you know.
Yeah.
So I hadn't met these people before. I didn't know anything. And essentially we're just like, I mean, we just said like, hey, yeah, I mean, we're like, it's about a mile to get to break into the head of these basins up here. And at that point we can literally go in any direction we want.
Yeah.
And we kind of were like, which way do you want to go? And they were like, no, we're hunting the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, that's unreasonable, man. This is a trailhead. Like, this is the starting point, like where everybody has to start from.
Yes.
Even though it's very remote. You know, you can't have claim to just the entire area and this whole bully thing. And I remember I said to the guide, I was like, is this an outfitted hunt?
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, who do you work for? Because at that point I was like, I mean, if I'm going to get a game warden involved, I'm going to involve the outfitter. Like, where are you taking this? Remember? And then he wouldn't tell us. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then they shut up and
then I ended up I found out.
Yeah,
later.
Of course. I mean, it wasn't going to take rocket science, but it was enough like to just confront him on it. Where, you know,
she was like overweight, wearing tennis shoes, and they just started up in front of us. And then they're like, well, I think we made it a quarter mile up the trailhead, and they're all, Andy and I are just cruising. And then they're like, are you just gonna follow us the whole way up here? And we're like, no, we're getting here and we are turning off of this trail. And they just got all mad, been out of shape, and they ended up peeling off into the timber. So that's one thing that those ethics to me, like, I am not, confrontations in the woods are my least favorite experience, but I'm not going to roll over and be like, oh, you're right. You go ahead and hunt that 45-mile wilderness area.
Well, that was just unreasonable, and we were totally reasonable. I mean, literally asked them, like, where do you want to go? Like, we're happy to just take another direction up there. But
because we had a nice bull in there. We had a nice bull that we had spotted in there, and I wasn't going to tell them, hey, we're going here. I just wanted them to tell us where you guys are going.
There was lots of room to work around that. That was a really arrogant thing. That guide was there was a terrible scenario. I mean, shame on that guy for that. It was just very unprofessional. Yeah. And I think he realized that after the fact about how unreasonable that was, because no one would have accepted that. And I think also there's a case where they would have definitely bullied some people out of there.
Oh, yeah.
And I suspect that guide had done that.
Oh, yeah, because there was other people up there. It just wasn't... It wasn't happening to me, you know, but then it ended up, God made it a point to make sure that we didn't get that hunt done because
it was such a cluster.
I dropped so I borrowed a 4-wheeler from a buddy, and he said, take the key, don't be a victim. So it's just a little black key, no lanyard on it. And Andy and I get about, I don't know, halfway, 3/4 of the way.
Punching, dude. We were close to a mile up that trail when Connor's like, hey, and I'm still in like, you know, I'm obviously like focused. I'm trying to like get ahead of them. We're trying to get into this. We're already late. We're trying to get into this basin.
Yeah, we have like
probably another
2 hours.
Yeah, we got a ways to go still. Yeah. I mean, we got another hot hour of hiking.
Yeah.
You know, to put in. And Connor's like, I can't find the 4-wheeler key.
Yeah.
And I'm pissed already. I'm like, what? And he's like, I can't find the 4-wheeler key. I was like, you left it at the bike, you know? And I'm thinking like, fuck the 4-wheeler key.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? And Connor's like, no, dude, I had it in my pocket.
Yeah.
And it's now not in my pocket.
I took it out. We pulled apart our backpacks. And mind you, there's like 8 inches of snow on the ground. The sun's up. So that little black key is going to fall in this soft snow, and then it's just going to suck all the way down in there. Pull apart my backpack, looking through everything, can't find anything, and I'm like,
Connor's like, we gotta go back, and we gotta find the key. And I'm like,
We'll never
I'm
find
like, dude,
that in the
after
dark.
all of that encounter with these people, now we're gonna walk back down the trail with our heads glued to the floor, looking. Yeah, it was not fun, and
Yeah.
so we did painstakingly go
Took us
all the way back,
all
a
the way to
long
dark,
time,
I
'cause we
think.
didn't want to miss it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I found it right, but I found it like 100 yards from the bike.
And I
It
remembered.
melted into this little hole.
Yeah.
And the night didn't stop there, right? So we
Well,
were super
but
relieved.
We figured out. I pulled it. It fell
pulled your
out when
gloves
I
out of your pocket or
no
something.
my bullets. So when I
That's right.
when I loaded the mag, it popped out of the pants right there where I loaded the mag.
Yeah, so we get back. It was just that was an ordeal. Like
Yeah.
it was an ordeal.
Because
But
there's
we-
no way on those new 4-wheelers. Like if
Yeah.
if we could have broke that thing into neutral and rolled it down the hill because it was
not
all
where
downhill.
we were. Dude, there's no way
You
we
know,
were getting.
okay, it
that
wasn't-
trail was a disaster.
it was a
That trail
gnarly-
was a gnarly trail. Remember on the
Yeah.
way up to that, that's the first time I encountered both of us to some degree. Remember that eerie basin we got into with all the burnt trees, right? And we were like stopped, and Connor was like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And like, we were checking things out and stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, this burnt timber is really cool." And I like remember I leaned over just to kind of rest on one. And
Yeah.
the fucking thing
And
came
it was like
crashed out. All
was
the
a
roots had
big
burnt
tree.
out.
Yeah.
And I like look around. I was like, "Oh my goodness, dude!" I was like, "These things have got no roots." And
Yeah.
like, we go up to another one, push another one over, it falls over. And of course, in this, you've got lots of this matchstick stuff down, but there's pencils everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, you do not want to be in one of these in a windstorm. It
Yeah.
would be incredibly dangerous.
Incredibly.
I
That
had
is
no idea.
Widowmaker
But
extraordinary.
it was an eerie basin. Remember how
Yeah.
like weird the sound was in there? It was like
And
really quiet and
I
eerie.
think the fire was so hot that it
It
sterilized the
it. There
soil.
was
Yeah.
nothing, man. It was just
Yeah.
and the basin
Looked like a
felt it
moonscape.
felt like that. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're coming out. I mean, the trail's a mega trail to come out on a rough, wet, slick. We get like halfway out. Well, Connor fucking yips it, hits a stump with the 4-wheeler, and flips the 4-wheeler. Goes flying off. The 4-wheeler nearly rolls over the top of it on a steep bank.
Yeah, it was a steep bank.
So I like bail off. Connor's fine. It's friggin' dark now. We roll the 4-wheeler back up to the trail, get it going again. We go all the way back. We go all the way back. Another
it-
like, I mean, I don't know, what's that? Another
Hour?
30 minutes?
Yeah.
It's an hour the whole way, but we were halfway down at that. Well, we were
I
kind
don't
of
even-
2/3 of the way up.
yeah, we still got half the distance
We get
to go.
down. We're fucked by the time we get back. We're tired. We've been going at it for a little bit. We load the bikes on the trailer. I'm like strapping him down. Connor's getting stuff in the truck. And all of a sudden he's like, "Andy." I'm like, "What?" It's like, "Can't find my binos."
We were glassing as we were driving, so we were stopping and glassing. So I had my bino harness just unflipped. I don't have them clipped in because I like to put them on a tripod. When I rolled the wheeler and jumped, they
I was
exited
tired.
stage right.
I was tired and already not having it.
Yeah,
I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, my
my Swarovski binos.
And I'm like, "Don't they clipped into your?" He's like, "I think they fell out when we rolled the." It's like, okay, this is like start unstrapping the
Pulling
bikes,
out
dude. We
the
drove
ramps.
straight back up there at night. We found him. Came anyway. Yeah, it was.
And then later on that night, Andy and I, we were going to drive all the way into town, go have a steak and some beers. And I was like, the way my luck is going tonight, I am going to get a DUI after drinking 2 beers on the way home. I was like, we're staying at
I don't
camp.
even remember what we did. I mean,
So
it
we
had to have
stayed-
been late.
Yeah, it
when we got
was
back.
super late. So we stayed at camp, and that night the carbon monoxide alarm was going off. The pilot light went out in that camper, and the carbon monoxide alarm was going off, and it was like this little like beep, beep. Like it wasn't like a real alarm. And
It's a chip.
I woke up and thank God, like figured out that the carbon monoxide alarm was going off. But that was, yeah, it was funny to deal with that encounter and then deal with it the way we did. And then it was just like at one after another, God's just like, yeah, today's not your day. You need to go back to camp and figure it out. Yeah, never saw that bull again. I had glassed him from a long ways away on the other side. But the route in was much different. You had to come in over the top.
Yeah, I totally forgot we had that encounter. That was a bad one.
That was
a
a bad
shitty
one.
deal. And
Yeah.
it was a little embarrassing, honestly, for the clients, I think, and the position they were in, the guide handled that really poorly.
But they handled it poorly also. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. They,
Yeah.
both the clients
Yeah.
and the guide really
Yeah, really handled
that
And she
poorly.
kept saying how she shoots long range and she's just gonna shoot the bull over the top of my head. And it was
whatever.
It was a bad deal. But yeah, that was probably one of my worst encounters. So I mean, that's something to be cognizant of too. Is there is going to be outfitters in any public lands that you go into in Colorado?
I mean, there's some legit stories of like outfitters playing by pretty dirty rules on public land, right? I mean, we've heard them all over the West, Arizona, New Mexico, you know, like dropping trees, locking gates, flattening truck tires. I mean, there's some shitty people out there for sure.
Totally. And I was worried about the four-wheeler on that encounter when we got back.
Yeah, for sure.
Find the key with 4 flats on it and 15 miles to go. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so don't be those guys.
Yeah.
I had another one. This was a high country deer. Well, it wasn't a high country. It was just a deer, second rifle deer tag that I'd never had before. I think, in fact, it might have been the very first rifle deer tag I've ever had here. And I picked this obscure spot, right? It's got an old mining road. They're closed, like they're all grown over and stuff. And it's this, it's a weird spot, right, to get to. Got to make this like really crazy climb to get all the way up. But once you hit this road wraps you, like these old mining roads that like wrap you around like the contour of a basin kind of thing. And it's a small little basin I'm trying to get to. Oh man, same thing. I'm always there early, got all my stuff, and I hoof it up. And it's one of those ones where it's just like, I mean, it's steep, man. There's just no way around it. It's like an hour of just sucked climb. Well, I get like 2/3 of the way up and totally by surprise, because I couldn't think anybody else knew of this spot, or it just seemed so obscure that I look back down the hill and I see a flashlight way down the hill. And I'm thinking, like, there is no ways somebody is coming to the same spot. I hoof it. I go probably another 10 minutes. I look back down. They're slowly but surely they're coming up. So I'm thinking like, geez, what are the chances? So I get my like bright little LED flashlight out and I like start beaconing them down the hill, you know, just because in case it's like, I don't want them to get up here.
Thinking
because I've hiked to a place before and then found a dude there where I'm like, I wish I'd have known you were up here.
Exactly.
So I didn't just hike an hour up here to leave.
Yeah.
So I like flash and I see them stop, you know, like clearly they saw my light, and I like flash a couple more times and they're like, okay, cool, they saw me. It's like, geez, sweet, they can change their plan and kind of do their thing. Anyway, dude, I get all the way up there. I finally hit this road. I like pull my pack off. I pull my shirt off. It's cold, you know, it's second season, snow on the ground, and I'm sweating, you know, there's no way to get up that thing.
Yeah.
And I watch for like 35 minutes while these guys just come up all the way until they literally come right to the road. I'm just standing there, right? It's pitch black and you can't go anywhere. Like I'm at like the ridge where like you would start to wrap into the basin. I don't want to enter the basin until I want to glass it as I go.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be deer right in the, you know, it's not just like a get to a, and I get up there, and it's a guy and his son, and his son's probably 15 or so, and the guy's like in his late 40s or something like that, mid 40s, I don't know. And I'm like, did you see my light up here? He's like, yeah, we saw you. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I'm gonna hunt to the right here, and I'm gonna wrap into the small basin when it's light enough. Straight up, just told him, and he's like, yeah, that's our plan. And I'm like, okay. Now at this point, like I'm not having a, you know, like it's, and I was like, well, I got here first. I don't know what to tell you, you know, what tags have you guys got? It's like, oh, we both got deer tags and got an elk tag. I'm thinking like, okay, like, and you can go the other way into a much bigger basin, which I considered, but I was kind of like at this point, like, no, I'm not. Yeah. Like, no, I made the commitment to be here first. And, you know, this is where I'm going to be. And I suggested, I was like, well, why don't you guys go hunt that basin? Because I'm going to hunt this one. And I'm going to hunt it the way I want to hunt it, you know? And he's like, no, that's what we came up here for. We're going into that. And I was like, well, I've got a deer tag, right? So I'm going to go into this basin and I'm going to hunt it at my pace, right? And
hopefully,
like, I don't know what to tell you, but it's not going to be great if I in front of you and I see a deer I want to shoot and then I shoot it. Like the basin's blown out. Like, I don't know if you want to waste your morning. Well, he was adamant, man, like literally adamant. And I could tell the kid was a little embarrassed. And there was a part where I was like, yeah, I was like, and I straight up told him, I was like, it's not cool, man. I was like, I've made the effort to be up here. I am the first up here. I totally understand that it's public land.
Yeah.
However, given the situation, like, I'm sorry you guys know the spot. It's a new spot to me. Like, I know it well enough, but this is the first time I've actually physically hunted it. And I could tell his kid was a little uncomfortable, and I thought it was a very, very strange position for his dad to take, to literally just be like, nah, fuck you. Like, he didn't say that, but it was basically like, we're not doing that. So I kind of stood my ground, and I was like, well, we're not going in until it's light enough to see, threateningly now. Like, basically, I'm like, if I'm not in front of you, like, we're not going in here. Like, or otherwise there's going to be a problem. Like, I didn't say it, but I made it clear that. And it was awkward because I thought it was like, there's going to be a point where he's going to be like, yeah, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm here hunting with my son. Like, I'm just going to, just go do something else. Like, what is this? This makes no sense, And so we walk a little bit. It probably takes 45 minutes to get light. So I'm now in this confrontation with these guys hanging out with me, like, for 45 minutes, right? And we get to a point where I was like, I'm going to stop here until it's light enough to glass, and I'm not going to move further into the basin. And they're like, well, we'll just go right up to the top of the basin. And I was like, okay, fine, if you want to, but you got to go from here, And he was kind of just thinking I would, like, just wait. And I literally, like, stood in the thing. And finally, I was like, yeah, and it's like this, dude. I was like, well, here, this is your spot to go up then, if you want to.
Yeah.
And so, like, reluctantly, after like 2 or 3 minutes, he, like, turns, and him and his kid, and they walk up this fucking hill and up on top of me. And I just thought, like, there's a part of me that's, and I've been waiting for this season, right? So this is like opening morning. It's the first morning. It's my first play. I know it's a really good play. Probably was looking for a better buck than maybe they were willing to shoot. And honestly, the whole scenario would have been totally different if it could have been. It was a bizarre thing for me. Anyway, I get in there, and ultimately they did go up high above me, but then they wrapped out in front. Obviously, that thermal just blew all the way down. It just winded the whole basin out, right? Which I knew was, I was just, anyway. So I hiked out of there thinking, like, what a crazy thing to do.
No, especially with your son there. That's a big learning opportunity, but that kid also has the potential to go the other direction.
I think so.
He was old enough to know what's right and wrong, and that may make him be like, Dad.
I also think the way I handled it, in the sense that it was clear that I was being polite but holding my ground, and I explained why it wasn't the right thing to do. Like, it wasn't just like a fuck you, I'm doing whatever I want. And, it was just kind of like first come, first serve to some degree. And I know that's not always the case, but in that scenario, it was a crappy deal.
But to piggyback on that, I do want to talk about some of the better encounters with strangers I've had in the woods. I had an archery deer tag. I'd been glassing this buck and stalking him for probably 4 days, something like that. Found him again. I'm on a hill, and I'm not very far from roads, but I had walked in. I set up on this hill in the dark. I'm waiting for it to get light. Gets light, find the bucks, look behind me. There's somebody else in a truck glassing those deer. And I'm like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not even having a confrontation about this. Those people just showed up. I've been on this deer. So I'm taking the position that you did, but I'm not even going to talk to them. So I run back to my truck, fly down the road, get to where I want to be. Then I start stalking in on that buck just to make sure he's not going to get in there. And I ended up getting in there. I took a shot that I shouldn't have shot, probably. Got in on embedded at like 58. He stood, I drew, and he just stood there directly away from me, almost directly, but there was enough of an angle where I figured I could kind of slide it in that back rib, and I'm holding, and he's not turning, he's not doing anything. I shot, grazed that rib cage, never entered inside. Buck takes off running. So I'm thinking now, like, did I force that shot because these guys are pressuring me, or, because that's not something that I would typically do, but I am very confident. So I did think I could slide in that back rib. Well, anyways, I hike back down to my truck and there's a note on the windshield. I'm like, oh, great. Like it's going to be some guy just, mother effing me. And it said, hey, that's a really nice buck. Good luck killing him. Here's my number. Text me if you kill him. And I was like, whoa. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like that's something that I didn't even consider was a possibility, was somebody being nice to me like that. So texted him. I told him, I said, I hit the buck. I said, my rule is I'm just stay on him until I kill him or I just eat my tag. And that guy and I still text to this day. We always text during hunting seasons back and forth. So I've never physically met that guy. It all started from a note. So he's almost like a pen pal. You know what I mean? Like and I just thought that was a super cool encounter because I don't know that I would have been that nice in that situation. I would definitely not left a note. You know what I mean? Like I'd have been pissed and I would have just drove out of there or whatever. And just because I didn't get there first, right? And that guy got in there, but he was very cool.
Yeah, but for context, you would be pissed at yourself. You wouldn't be pissed at that guy.
Yeah.
It's not like you would
my outlet would be that guy, but I would be mad at myself internally. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh,
and there's a difference.
Guy.
There's a difference for sure. No, I mean, obviously the topic is the ethics on the side of that, and so there's lots of bad encounters. I've had lots of great encounters. I have met some wonderful long-term friends in the middle of nowhere, right? Yeah. But I do take the approach of communicating with them. I've also kind of taken the approach now of like, you never know what someone else knows.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a part where I will discuss it with them and see how friendly they are. It could be a life contact for something totally different. It could be a lawyer. It could be a doctor. I met a machinist, a master machinist in the middle of friggin' nowhere one year that when we were packing out a bull and he was stalking a bull and we went packing our bull like through the avalanche chute that he had a bull in. And he's
and
like
you didn't know?
signaling to us, and I like look at him, and I like look. I could see the bull up there, but we're like day 2 into pack out. We're friggin' loaded. Like I'm on my way. And I felt terrible. We chatted. We became friends and known each other ever since.
Were you just really cool guy. I'm so sorry.
But I was quiet. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, oh, please don't spook. And I just like we're just like 100 pounds of crap under my back. Feet are toast. Anyway,
I know that's a hard thing, but at least
that was a tricky one.
It's cool
and he was
that
totally
guy
cool
was
with
cool.
it.
Yeah,
of course he was. He knew there was no other. I mean, what are the chances that some random dude's packing out a bull while he's trying to,
Because I'm trying to think, would I be upset in that situation? Like I think I probably would, but that's without considering what you guys are going through right now. And where was that guy from?
South Carolina.
Okay, so there's another point to be made. Typically, the people who are going to be a little bit more agitated are the locals or the Colorado people, as opposed to, because the same thing.
Western
the guy
hunters generally, you'll find
the
guys
guy that
from
left
the east
that note was from. I think he's from Illinois or something like that. I mean,
yeah, Midwest and the East guys tend to be pretty friendly and a little bit more group orientated and happy for your success. Whereas some of the Western guys tend to be a little bit more competitive and
selfish
and cliquey. Yeah, for sure.
Guilty.
And
that's kind of one of my detriments is I don't feel like I own the public land, but it's just, I don't know. It feels like it's more mine than it is theirs. You know what I mean?
What, for out-of-staters?
No, just like, and that
for anyone else you encounter in the woods.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I'm just kidding. No, like it depends situationally how it happens, right? Like you said, but I do feel like, I don't know. That's a weird one because I feel like I have these spots even though they're not my spots. So seeing people in there really bothers me. But it can't, but it does. And I can't help
look,
that.
There's a reality to that, really. I mean, there's guys listening to this. It's not like I stand on any specific hill. I mean, there are, especially when you get into smaller communities where outfitters or certain hunters, they grew up hunting some of these spots, and someone found them, but you might have just legitimately found them,
Yeah.
you know, and
Which is a lot easier nowadays. It's like, how'd you find this wallow? And they're
very
like,
much so.
Google Earth. It's
Yeah,
like,
very.
oh,
I have
cool.
met some people in the woods where they told me about a spot they went to, and I was like, "How on earth did you find that?" And he's like, "It was right on my map, some satellite image."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah,"
Because
damn.
different minds pick up different things on maps too. You know, like everybody you show a map to is going to interpret it differently than other people. And some, yeah, like they said, they're just picking a spot on a map and it ends up being a honey hole or somebody else's honey hole or, you know.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about this kind of from the perspective a little bit is that there's a, you know, and every town's got some out of state hunters. Obviously, I'm an out of towner, you know. I'm
Well, not really anymore.
Not a local.
We've welcomed him into the fold.
and you know, it was kind of funny initially because initially it's kind of something exotic and new, so people are excited, and then all of a sudden you start killing some stuff, and they're like, "Fuck that guy!" Like this freaking guy
Yeah.
came from nowhere here, and you know, like we've talked about this. We won't name all the names, but we know like 4 or 5 like really, really good out of state
Oh,
hunters.
yeah.
Better than lots of the local
That
great
live
hunters.
here now.
You know, yeah, or
Yeah.
have been here for a while,
Yeah.
you know, and some have left, and you know,
Yeah.
very successful hunters, and it's kind of
Which
funny the
we're
rap
gonna
they
have
get.
one of those. We're gonna have one of those on here. He gets back from Florida. He just shot a turkey down there, and we're gonna have one of those boys that he is doing his best and succeeding at outdoing the locals.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny the flack you get from the locals, you know, instead
Yeah.
of kind of just embracing that fact, they get kind of their hair up about it. And
Yeah,
pretty upset about it, which is the ultimate compliment, by
Yeah.
the way. I really do take it as a great compliment when I get that.
but it doesn't even have to be out of state people. Like people just get very jealous of success. So I've even being a local, like hunting here, I still hear the chirping. You know what I mean?
For sure. It's a funny thing though, because I am genuinely pretty happy for other people's success.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
genuinely am, you know, and I because for me it just doesn't make sense otherwise. It's like if you're resentful of it, I don't know, it just takes a piece of you with it. You know? Whereas if you're
for
happy
sure.
for them, you both get to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
And so
But you're not happy for everybody. You know what I mean? There's
within reason. I mean, to some degree. I mean, if someone's worked hard for their success, even people I don't like, I mean, I can separate my dislike for them from their accomplishment. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you.
And so
yeah.
I can still give them credit for like, yeah, that someone worked hard for that. This guy's an asshole, but he worked hard for
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And he got it
exactly.
done, and I can appreciate that. I'm not going to be buddies with the guy, but
Yeah,
so
that's fair.
So that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So I've had lots of good encounters, you know, with helping people pack stuff out, and we've even had good encounters with non-hunters in the woods. If respectful, and there's been some bad encounters with non-hunters. That's another factor, right?
Yeah.
Ethics on public land, when someone gets confronted by a non or an anti-hunter, right, that tries to ruin your hunt.
Yeah.
And the whole like ruining your hunt thing, like there's guys that'll go out of their way to ruin somebody's hunt. Okay, so here's another ethic for you, right? As opposed to like the scenario of like you're the first in the basin, you're glassing it, maybe you've pinned down a deer or something like that, right? And someone else turns up. Well, what about when we start talking about more targeted species? So a specific big buck or something like that, where someone will not only be willing to compete with you for it, they will be willing to ruin your hunt in the sense of, you know what I'm getting at? Like, if I don't get to kill it, I'm
No
making
one
damn
gets
sure
to
that
kill
guy.
it. Yeah.
That's a fucked up thing
Yeah.
to do, right? And we
Yeah.
know a lot of hunters that have done that, right?
Yeah.
Which is
That's-
that comes in often when the animal is big enough. That you don't often see that when it's just something. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
What do you think about all that?
I mean, I've said this a million times. Big deer make people crazy, and they make people do stupid, unethical stuff. And I've seen and heard a lot of it, and it just drives me up a wall because I do not. I think the part I enjoy most about hunting is just like not competing with anybody but myself. Right? Like I'm getting satisfaction out of that. So I have zero desire to compete with somebody else over a deer. But then again, how big is it? You know what I mean? Like that's where we talk about this kind of being a moving goalpost. but you have that conversation and see where it lies if you're presented. But sometimes, like you said, you're not going to get an opportunity. You see some guy stalking from that side. Are you going to bum rush down in there and start risking your stock?
Yeah, it doesn't sit well with me.
I probably would if neither of us had any idea that each other were in the base and we come from opposite
that's totally
sides.
different. If you have no idea the other person's there or that they're even pursuing that buck, it's like I feel like there's room for an honest mistake or just like it's just I'm talking about when someone fully knowingly knows you're targeting that buck, you're in front of them, and they're going to ruin it for you.
Yeah, no,
you know
that's totally wrong. Totally
We've
wrong.
heard of that happen.
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like
there was a situation a couple of years ago with a governor's tag, and I'm not even going to get into that, but there's some situations like that where it just, and the thing is we have to be united on some fronts as hunters, right? We are under attack. Like our Western way of living, our hunting privileges are under attack. So we can't be super divisive with each other, but it's hard in situations like that because I don't want to associate with those people. You know what I mean? That's just, I don't know. That's really hard to say. I know that I would not ruin somebody else's hunt if they were there and they're targeting the same deer as me. I'd probably just sit there and watch the thing unfold because they may be in a place where they can't see where the buck escapes and I can. So I'm not going to just try to compete with that guy. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and there's some variables to that for sure. I know there's some crazy stuff. I mean, to take my scenario last year, which wasn't a crazy one, but that a buck I killed with a buddy of ours was also there, not trying to kill that buck, but had his sights on it, and ultimately I made a play on it, not knowing who he was at the time.
Yeah.
And then shooting that buck, and then after the fact finding out, he's like, yeah, I freaking had that thing in my scope, and then watched it die.
Yeah, and, he texted me and he said, "Andy killed a deer. He's one hell of a shot," is what he said.
So those encounters, I thought those was just some rednecks who had no idea what was going on over there. So who knows? And credit to him for. I mean,
because
that's a great way to react.
He could have been shitty about that too, but he wasn't.
But wasn't. No,
which is
it was actually totally the opposite. It was actually genuinely psyched about it and knew the scenario. I think that just was what it was, and
which was super cool. So be more like that guy. Try to be gracious, and don't be a dick. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We did want to talk about some other types of ethics besides just ruining people's hunts or not ruining people's hunts. So let's talk about, and again, this is all variable, but let's talk about some ranges for different weapons. So let's talk about all three: rifle, muzz, archery. What are we thinking? It has to be species specific because we are both in agreement that does vary species to species a little bit, and depending on where you're at. So let's say a 300-inch bull, first rifle season, go.
I'm going to backtrack on this, right? It's a controversial topic, and it always has been. Like, how far is it ethical to shoot something is what you're really asking, and then the weapon specific and the animal and what bends the rules on that and who sets the ethic to begin with, right? There's lots of variables. I'll take it back to my own personal experience. Like when I started hunting with the bow, I had such limited access to knowledge, and I also didn't have in the USA, which is rare bow hunting, it had really kind of taken root, before it became like a big thing everywhere else. Obviously, it occurred traditionally in lots of places, but the way it is to some degree now, and a lot of it came from an era of discovery with like your, Saxon Pope, Fred Bear, Howard Hill. You got all these guys, that were actually like pushing the friggin' boundaries at the beginning, right? And then as it kind of evolved into like, let's make this a sport, let's make specific seasons for it. You know what I mean? Like there's a big evolution that came into that. Well, with that also became some police in it, right? Where there was this kind of just like, nobody can shoot an animal ethically over 30 yards, you know, like it's just, and then that stuck, right? It just stuck in this community, right? But it was a mix of like old target archers and old archers and also lots of trad specific folks, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, because there was a fair bit of pushback to the early compounds as well, you know, right off the bat in bow hunting. Anyway, so I'm
talk about Fred Bear. Like you've told me that story before. Like, I mean, he's basically sending range finding arrows down.
Oh, totally.
Range,
I mean, I've got, you know, we've heard
hunters.
trad guys, you know, be like, yeah, it's unethical to shoot after 30, but also Fred Bear's the godfather. And it's like, well, Fred Bear had a lot of arrows with him.
Yeah.
And he didn't mind to send a couple out there, right?
Just to see.
You know, maybe 4 or 5 mule deer clumped together and let's get one in the vicinity.
4 feet low, go a little higher.
Send another. Yeah, they'd dump a quiver as that thing cleared the basin.
Yeah.
And
but
sure,
like you said, they were testing the boundaries.
There should be an evolution of that, right? However, that's not a fixed goalpost, right? It's, you know, the weapons themselves. Anyway, what's kind of funny is I just started shooting. Right? I'm shooting, you know, I'm just shooting at a bale, and I'm getting to the point where I'm shooting at stuff, and I kind of remember even just experimenting. It's kind of fun when you don't know the limits to some degree, and it actually happens in life and society all the time where like someone sets this boundary and it kind of self-limits you when you think there's really a line in the sand there, right?
Yeah.
But when you meet somebody who had no idea that line ever existed, right? And they pushed past it, well, all of a sudden people are like, well, you can't do that. And they're like, well, I did.
And I have been.
Right. And so anyway, so that occurred, you know, where they're like, well, you could never shoot anything past 30 yards. And I was like, oh, well, I just better not tell this guy I just shot like a kudu bullet like 55 yards, because I did. And I didn't know this was like a no-no.
Yeah.
Right. I just like could make the shot, and I made the shot and I killed it. And, you know, it's kind of like, anyway, so there was that whole flux. Of course, then is also the evolution of like the individual, right? You've got lots of attributes to an individual depending on how good a shot they are, and that is a separate set to being a good hunter, right? They're just and like any specific skill within even a professional sport, you could have someone who's a really great ball handler or has a really good read on putting, right? There's all kinds of these specifics that go into it. Well, just shooting a weapon really proficiently is a skill set, and some people dedicate a considerable more time to doing it proficiently than others do.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm getting at is it is a constant moving goalpost. It's also an ethic, kind of like you said, which can really only be set by the individual themselves. What I deem is the furthest shot I can take at something is not a parameter I can put on you. What if you shoot twice as much as me? What if you're twice as good a shot as me, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of things that I just think it makes no sense to have a hard line in the sand on that. I think there's consequences
for the group, but not for the individual. Like you kind of need to have.
That should be learned. That's not something that. It's not a guess either.
Yeah.
Like, come to my house and shoot targets from 1 to 1,000, and I'll tell you where you can stop shooting at animals, right? Like we can measure it.
Yeah.
And it's just a case of like, are you going to be honest with yourself then at that point?
Because everybody wants wants to be a good shot, but like you said, there are so many people that have spent years honing this craft. Just because the gun shoots 1,000 yards doesn't mean you can shoot 1,000 yards. There's a specific skill set. There's a lot of practice that goes into it. So I mean, that is very important, and that needs to change. I spend way more time shooting a bow than I do a rifle, right? I grew up shooting rifles. I feel very comfortable. I have a gun that is capable of shooting 1,000 yards. I'm not going to shoot something over 6, and to be 6, it has to be ideal. And a lot of times I've accidentally, without even ranging it, because I've been bow hunting so much, got too close to elk because I just am like doing my thing. I'm just making my stock. And then I'm like, I'm 184 yards. Like I didn't need to be, I want to be close, but I didn't need to be that close. You know what I mean? But that's my line. And I don't think much would change that. I don't think on my rifle side of things, I don't think much would change that 600-yard mark because, like, as far as size of animal and stuff, because I feel like I could gain that distance with a rifle better than I can a bow sometimes, you know?
Yeah, and I know what you mean, and there are just lots of variables to this. I a lot of it is really an ethic of just. I mean, it could be two things. One is if someone's really put the effort in and has the confidence in it. Also, our equipment is really great now.
Yeah,
I mean, it
it's
really
great.
is. I mean, not to say they weren't phenomenal shots, and it's not like, I mean, obviously we're in this era of just modern cartridges and stuff, but guns have been
Yeah.
capable for a very long time.
Yeah.
You know, like lots of these, there are Wildcat cartridges and even some of the standard military cartridges that were very, very capable and
Yeah.
have been for a long, long time. But the package is condensed now. The rangefinder is a big factor, right? And then being able to dial a turret on a scope is a pretty big factor. So it's not necessarily that the equipment is more capable than it used to be, but the correction factors, its ability to remove error is significantly improved, and that does change things substantially. But they vary. I mean, you and I shoot trad bows. You know, trad bow, like you can be off at 15 yards. You know? And all you got to go is watch one group of trad guys at a 3D event and see the limitations of that equipment. But at the same time, you don't get to watch 100 rifle hunters before they come out here because it brings me back to like the guiding stuff. We used to take guys every time we hunted with somebody, we'd make them shoot at 100 yards. We would just ask them to shoot 3 shots at a zeroing group just to check the rifle.
Right.
Okay. Which we were not checking the rifle.
Yeah, 100%.
We were checking how that guy, because obviously you got a couple of professional hunters there, the trackers there, got some people, right? We're putting a cardboard plate out. We're trying to make it pretty relaxed. We're shooting like on a proper concrete, rifle rest bench. It's not, sandbags and everything, however they want to hold the gun up. I just want to check that the rifle didn't get bumped off. But we're trying to see, like, how's this guy going to handle, like, 4 or 5 adults just watching him shoot, for one.
Yeah.
And then 2, like, what can he hit, right? Because some guys can kind of hit a fucking pie plate at 100 yards. And then it's like one shot here, one shot here, one shot here. And then there's a small learning
their
factor.
limitation.
It's like one of the PHs shoots and is like, is the gun garbage or is the guy a terrible shot?
Yeah.
And that varies because you don't get to see rifle guys shoot all the time. Like your buddy's like, dude, I can shoot no problem at 400 yards.
Yeah.
And then you take the guy out and actually shoot at 400 yards. The guy can't even get within 5 feet of the target, So it varies. And you've also got guys that could pull up and make first round impacts at 700, 800, 900,000 yards, right? They're phenomenal shooters. Their equipment's dialed. It's very situational and circumstantial, right? For me, bow hunting was the big factor. Rifle, and there's things also change exponentially, okay, right? So it's like your shots at 10 to, let's say 40. When you're really proficient, you have quite a lot of control over, but the 40 and up, right, can there's lots of factors. It's kind of like a rifle. Like if you're very, very dialed to 500,
Right.
the gap between 500 and shooting a shot at 800 or 900, the wind factors and the correction values on that kind of stuff, it's exponential is how it changes, right? And so, and then just the environmental conditions and how it all plays out in the field. There's times where if you've shot a compound a lot and you're honest with yourself, especially with a quiver full on your bow, and man, in our high country here, like deer hunting and some of the high country, even elk for that matter, you draw your bow back and it's windy at 50 yards, dude, it's hard to hold on a mule deer. On the hold, they just on, off. It doesn't matter how good you are, right?
Yeah.
It's like that condition is not conducive to making a really great shot.
Yeah.
And there's other times where you can pull back at something at 70, 80 and feel absolutely dead locked on it. No wind condition, your footing position is good.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been circumstantial, but I know what you mean. There is a cap
Yeah.
that you put on it, but I put the cap on the circumstances and my preparation, not so much just some number.
Not a hard line, but I think like but then we're talking situationally. So on basically anything in perfect conditions, I wouldn't shoot over 80 yards, right? So when I was shooting a lot, I was practicing with my compound. So I'm practicing out to 120, and that was when I was shooting a ton for an antelope tag. I was like, I'm going to shoot all the way out to 120 I just want to bring everything in. And that's probably the greatest I was shooting in my life at that point. but I was preparing for an antelope tag. So that's kind of where that line broke, right? For me, where I'm like, okay, getting under 100 yards from an antelope, tough, really tough. And I was like, if I get under 100, I'm shooting for sure. I would never do that on a mule deer. I'd never do that on an elk. But for some reason, and this is, my brother got really upset because there was a guy here who wounded a buck, and he's just like, why would he be shooting at 88 yards on an antelope? And I'm like, this is the difference. You stick an elk bad, you stick a whitetail bad, gone forever, right? I mean, you may find that thing, but you're not recovering meat. You're not doing anything. If you really make a bad shot on it, you make a bad shot on an antelope, he's not going to the trees, which is kind of a crappy thing to say, but you, of course, are trying your best to make the best shot you can. But
yeah, I think the argument is a little less the justification for it. It's more the how are you prepared to deal with the consequences of what might be inevitable. And that when someone has a problem with someone having, taken a far shot, they are the same consequences occur. It doesn't matter whether you shoot something at 10 yards or 80 or 90 yards with your bow. Sometimes something is going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are bad shots can be taken, right?
Yes.
They're really, obviously,
Yeah.
there can be some really bad shots taken.
Yeah.
But you also have to be like, how are you prepared to deal with it? Because some people are prepared to just walk away from it, right?
Yeah.
And I have more of a problem with that person than I have with someone who took a longer shot that was within their ability. Let's just assume they've made a reasonable judgment that they've made a shot within their ability, wounded the animal, and then burn their tag for that season, spend 5 or 6 days or coming back for weeks trying to find that single animal, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not just the single act, it's how they prepared for it, the act occurred, and then how they dealt with it after the fact. It's the bigger picture that I want to see in somebody.
Totally.
So it's not just that single incident, right, where some people are really upset about. It's like, yeah, that guy maybe made a long shot at something, which might be out of their realm of capability, but it wasn't for that person. They messed it up, but they don't know that person spent 2 weeks looking for that animal, right?
Exactly. And
made every effort possible, which should be factored.
That is like that I will die on that hill. If I stick something, I either find that animal dead, I find him alive and I kill him, or I eat my tag. And that is something I will die on. We don't have enough animals going around to shoot 4.
And that's a topic in itself. And I think I've noticed there's a factor in that, right? From coming from Africa, particularly, where we have some phenomenal trackers. So you learn the capabilities of actually what they are tracking something and how much can actually be recovered. And Western hunters, American hunters in general, are actually very poor trackers. And I'm talking like poor, like in the 10% pool of being on the bad end of the scale, right? It's not a skill. Now, some are good at it.
For sure.
Particularly, actually, some whitetail hunters can be really good trackers, right? Yeah. Western hunters tend to not be great trackers, and I think that's where a lot of effort, like how often do you hear of someone being a good tracker? Of all the people, you're like, that guy's a freaking great tracker, really great tracker, or practicing tracking or working on a tracking skill, or it's something that we don't have set a bar to aspire to in the West that I think,
because you can't even use the conditions as an excuse, because the conditions in Africa can be horrible and those trackers are incredible.
Yeah, there's a persistence to it. There's also just you know what that's like. Even if you can't track well, the dedication to like truly grid something out properly. Yeah. If you've done that for multiple days, it's no joke. It takes a huge amount of focus, determination. I've heard guys say like, I grid search for 4 or 5 days. It's like, there's not many people who have gridded properly because it is painstaking. It is not fun, right? Anyway, I think that's a factor that people should. And then this is back to your topic of like, not only like what's our maximum shot distance, but it's like here in the West, we're drawing individual tags, or even in the East, you know, you got a whitetail tag or something. You might have one buck tag. Here you got one elk tag. Then we move to just the premium elk tag, or a bighorn sheep, a once in a lifetime tag, where what about the ethic of shooting the animal, not recovering it, or knowing well that it was maybe a fatal shot and not recovering it, or not, like whatever, you wounded it, you go back hunting again. You know, we've known so many guys here that have shot just like 4 or 5 elk with the same tag. We know some old timers who've shot like 3 or 4 bighorn sheep with the. That's another personal ethic, and it's also a grandfather campfire ethic of the people you associate with. Like, is that acceptable or not? You know, and I think now it's washed out where we don't have that accountability. It's almost, I mean, I've heard about it bragged about, where someone's like, how'd you get on last season? It's like, man, I freaking stuck a freaking big elk, couldn't find him. I got onto another one, I stuck another one, I lost that one. It's almost like,
they're almost bragging about it. Yeah,
which is a very odd
that's
thing.
Disturbing. That is disturbing.
You got to get out from that. Like, we don't want that at all. That's just not something to brag about.
And just to play devil's advocate, like I've never on, you know, a big 3 tag hit and lost something, but that's a very hard thing to do, right? I mean, you pick a low density unit for any of the big 3, you stick one, you look for a week, you lose it. I said that is the hill that I die on, and that is true. I would just continue to look for that. But can you blame somebody else for going after something on a tag that they're never going to draw again?
Yeah, I can a little bit. And the reason is it's a very rare tag, and there's a lot of us that want that opportunity.
Yeah.
And it would be a tricky thing to know. So what happens if it happens again? That's the weird thing. Like, when this has happened, it's often happened multiple times to people, right? It's not like they just went and shot at you, or just like, and they then wounded another ram. And so it's like, not only did you miss the opportunity you were presented with, and sure, you spend years getting it, and it is a once in a lifetime, and it's rare. But what about all of the rest of us who may never get to experience that? Well, now there's also that many less opportunities. So I think for the most part, I got a problem with that. I think if you were honest with yourself, and I understand that's a tricky thing to navigate. And I also think it requires some prior discussion and thought with yourself and your crew to, like, is everybody on the same boat? And I do think there's a part of this, both for good ethics and for bad, where the old hunting camp actually did influence an individual's ethics to some degree, right? Because there's some hunting camps that will party hunt and shoot whatever, and it's no problem, like wound whatever, like you shoot at running herds and all kinds of stuff, right? It's just the norm in their group. And so that is the ethic that they all follow. So if you grew up in that crew, shooting shit, you know, racing them down in vehicles, the whole shebang, right? Yeah. Or you have a group of guys who are like, no, we don't do that. You know, we value this critter, or whatever, something it is that, you know, they're like, we're not going to be, and of course, we're talking ideals here, right? Of course, this just varies from group to group. But what I am getting at is more like the social media now is we kind of get to see like the cherry on the top.
Right.
What you don't know is what their individual ethics are amongst each other. And you do with your buddies the more you get to hunt. And not everyone's going to be the same, because they are individuals. There's things that you'll do and I'll do that they'll have to be substantial for us to fall apart over.
Oh, yeah.
But there'll definitely be some stuff where it's like, hey, man, I make this consideration, you know, like, and there's lots of different stuff. And that can go both ways. I mean, I remember, not to bring up the sort of topic again, but when you lost one of your whitetail, I was incredibly impressed about how much effort you put into trying to find it. And honestly, I had more respect for you after the fact, knowing that, because it was a big part of me that's like, that might have been as far as I could have pushed myself. Yeah. And I know full well it was far beyond what the majority of my hunting companions would have gone far beyond.
I mean, I had people down there tell me, they're like, I think I looked for 4 or 5 days, and they're like, "Well,
Oh, for
you
some guys,
looked."
4 or 5 hours is a push.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
So they're
that's
like, "You looked 4 days longer than I would have," and just to prove that point that I will die on that hill, I ate that tag.
yeah.
That one was off the books, and it was a $2 tag, but that one's automatically off the board. Which Andy did that also. He shot a buck, lost it to the coyotes, and that that tag was off the table as soon as
Well,
that happened.
I tagged
Yeah,
the rack.
yeah,
I mean, I
he
didn't-
tagged the rack. Didn't get any meat and tagged the rack. So yeah, find you some guys like that you can hold accountable too, because you need to be able to tell your buddies too, like, hey, that's bullshit. Like, don't do that, and you need to be comfortable enough with them to call them out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not a bad thing for sure. You
And
know?
I have people like that buck that I grazed. Man,
Well, I was going to clarify that you killed that buck later on,
Yeah.
so we know you grazed it.
Yeah.
We're not just assuming.
I killed him 4 or 5 days later in a completely different spot he'd never been. But I still have one of my best friends who's going to be on the podcast here soon. He still brings it up. He's like, "That was bullshit. Like that was a horrible shot. Like you shouldn't have taken that." And I'm like, "I know." And he's like, "Kudos to you for sticking it out." I mean, I knew that I got, once I see blood on the ground, that's it. Like I either find him or I don't.
And this
you know?
topic is an interesting one, right? Because I'm no angel. No,
Yeah.
neither are you.
No.
You know, no one is actually. It's very, very rare to meet someone who has really been very, very solid. Lots of people have to evolve into this,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
You do. Like you
Yeah.
and it kind of depends on the scenario. You know, wing shooting's got slightly different ethics, and coyote hunting's got slightly different
Yeah.
ethics, and once in a lifetime tags. Like, there's some variables to this, right? I'm not saying like I'm here sitting here perfect, and
Right.
and I do enjoy to push the boundaries of things, but I'm also willing to admit when I'm wrong and make a change, and so on and so
Because
forth, which is a
that's-
factor. Because I
you
think
set
to
those
just say like
ethics.
this needs to be like something you decide on and you die on that hill. There's going to be some very specific things that yes, the rest you're going to have to evolve with.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make some mistakes,
Yeah.
and then you just have to be honest enough with yourself where you're like, yeah, it was a mistake. Like I pushed it. Now this leads me to our other question: is ethics is a bit of a moving goalpost. Okay. The bigger the animal gets, the more important it is to you, right? Your
sure.
goalposts will move a little bit. Not
Yeah.
only the circumstantial, situational stuff like wind and all of this I was talking about before. What happens when you got a one-time whitetail tag or you got your elk tag here and you've set yourself a distance of, let's say, 80 yards or something, right? And that bull walks out and it's a
84.
380 bull. It's just an absolute giant, and he's 5 yards over your right, or it's all kinds of variables.
But
like,
then it's circumstantial. Then if you draw back and you hold on that thing and your pen just settles right where it should, and there's a little movement, but you're rock solid on that thing, of course you're going to take that shot. But you got to be careful or be willing to live with the consequences in eating that tag. If you draw back in horrible conditions, you're bouncing all over the place. You still take that shot and then you lose them.
There's two factors to that, I think, as well, that we see occur, right? Because we know that happens. We're
Yeah.
not being honest with each other, or everybody's not being honest with themselves. If you think when that scenario unfolds that you don't push the limit
Yeah.
or break your ethic a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's
Bend
two
it.
outcomes to this, right? Whereas some people are willing to take the risk for the risk of the benefit of the showcase of the, right? But they'll exclude the responsibility of the mistake.
Yes.
There's the other pool of people are also willing to do that, also for the benefit, also for the grandeur, but are willing to then deal with the consequences
Yeah.
of having pushed that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a determining factor to some degree, right? Because we know we all do it,
Yeah.
right? We all
Yeah.
do it. So how do we deal with it after? Do we just pretend it didn't happen,
Nah.
or do we,
You got to tell people, because once again, you're looking for those people. You're looking for those people to hold you accountable. So I think it's very
well,
important
not
to
everyone
tell
is.
people.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that's true. But there's nothing I hate more than the cherry on top picture when the backside of that, where they hit 4 things before they finally killed
Yeah.
one. Like you said, you see that snippet and that just drives me nuts. I mean, there's a hunting influencer that went on a mountain goat hunt with a buddy of mine up in Alaska and wounded a mountain goat with his stick bow. He went on that hunt as a benefit to the outfitter and to him, right? It was just a trade of like, I'm gonna promote your outfit and you're gonna give me a discounted mountain goat hunt. Well, sticks a mountain goat, loses it. His ego and his social media presence can't afford to say, oh, well, I wounded a mountain goat. It was an incredible hunt. I had a big billy in my, so he never said anything about that outfitter ever, which that really bothers me because it's like he didn't want to see everybody make this mistake, and it cost that outfitter that hunt because of that. And so I think not everybody will, but I think like for new hunters or people whose ethics are evolving, you got to be honest, because like Andy said, we are not perfect and things happen. Like bad things happen. Hopefully not all the time, but they do happen in succession, and you just have to, you
have to evolve with it and learn from it and build your circle of people and know that when you see other people doing it, it's not just this perfect clean slate that they present, you know? So you just have to be aware of all those things and then give some consideration to, I play scenarios through my mind all the time, all the time. What would I do if this happened? What would I do if that happened? What would I do in this scenario? You know what I mean? So that I can kind of mentally prepare and assess, because there'd be times where it's like, well, if the big buck really comes through and he walks through that thicket pot there and I know I got no shot, like, am I slipping an arrow through that junk? And then I'm like, no. This is kind of like, that's
and you're
like
you're constantly talking to yourself, making an assessment.
So that when it presents itself, you'll find that guys have what's perceived as a really great instinct are actually guys that have played a lot of scenarios through their heads to know, they're also less likely to make a mistake that they can't live with. Because they've played that scenario through or something similar to it through their head where they're like, yeah, I'm going to take that risk. It's got these risk factors. These are the upsides. Like, this is something if it presents itself, it's something I'm going to do. You should be doing that. I think you should be doing that.
The thing is the best way to learn, unfortunately, and evolve in these ethics is to get those experiences. So when you first start bow hunting, you may be like, oh yeah, I shoot at a block at 80 yards and I'm going to make that shot. And then you make a mistake in his body position in your shot, whatever. Then it changes and you realize, okay, maybe I'm not effective at that distance. So it is always changing and evolving, but you just have to be honest with yourself about all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes it fun. It should evolve, it is going to change constantly.
And it can change in an instant.
Of course it can. Yeah, 100%.
Like,
it really can.
You have to make that decision. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and he said that he's got a friend, and he said he's just not a killer. He goes, I had a rifle like clamped onto a bog tripod at 100 yards, and he's like, some people have to be gatherers. Like, he just completely whiffed. And I was like, yeah, I blacked out, when I, like, a lot of times when I shoot stuff, I totally, like, I don't remember it. It's like, it just like blacks out. But then I started thinking about it and I'm like, that's that instinct. Like, you've put in the practice, you put in the preparation. You're not thinking about it because you've done it so many times, right? You're just like, situation changes in an instant, you draw back, you make the decision and you shoot, and it's like you didn't even know that you were going to take that shot. It just like took over. You know what I mean?
However, that I agree 100%, but there are some new hunters that it's not just some magical thing. There, a lot of instinct can be built by repetition, by preparation, by practicing, by doing all those things that increase your confidence, that enhance your instinct in the moment. It's not just like someone's got it and someone doesn't.
Well,
yeah. I mean, there is Mom, Dad, I got something to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm a gatherer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Still,
Some
it can
people
be
are.
developed, right? It
Yeah.
can be developed, and you should constantly be developing it. I have that a little bit with some of my buddies and bits and pieces where I try to encourage that. I've always just enjoyed shooting. You know, it's like I shoot pistols and I reload, shoot long range, and all kinds of stuff. And I'll have, you know, I've got some buddies that rifle hunt and they just don't shoot a whole lot. You know, and I'm kind of thinking like, you would just be so much better if you just put quite a bit more preparation into this. You know, it's like, sure, can you just pick up this rifle and shoot something every year? Yes, but you really expand your horizons beyond that, you know, and mitigate a lot of mistakes by just doing it more. And I think we're seeing that now. There's definitely been a trend of people shooting more. There's more information. The technology is better. The information on how to do it right is better. It's getting a little hard to like weed through now, right? Because you've got just so many influences looking at, and you also got to remember, if you're new to this, that these topics have been some degree beaten to death. But if you're new to it, lots of people, even like Connor and I, that are talking about some of these things, what we're interested in now is the percentage difference between being 95% good to perfect, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about these nuances of like fletching profiles and arrow configurations and these small things and what you need to understand is where the 95%, where the bread and butter of being proficient comes from. Just as a FYI, right? Because now the information, if you think about it, when you hear about it on podcasts and stuff like that, people are talking about the nuances. They're talking about small, intricate details that change things, that move the needle by a small amount, right? But they're assuming you already have got to this point that you're proficient with everything and you're looking for the next tiny edge.
Yeah.
They're not talking about using this tiny specific fletching configuration if you can't hit shit at 30 yards.
Yeah.
Like there's just totally different things you need to be looking at.
I also feel like I've gotten more lazy on my rifle practice because the technology is so good. When I was shooting a 270 Remington with a 3-9 on it, and I had a tag that I was very excited about, I shot a lot, and I knew in my crosshair where the thin part of the vertical post met the thick part of the post, that was 450. So I'm very comfortable with that gun, right? I'm dry fire practice. I'm pulling up on stuff in the house or whatever, just dry fire practice on stuff. Well, now that technology is so good that I know I can just go to the range and be like 500.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Dial the turret.
It almost made me lazier on my rifle practice because I killed 2 deer at 450 yards with that 3-9 270 because of all the practice that I'd put into doing that. Now 450 is like almost a gimme if the situation is right. You know?
If you're well set up. The other, the thing with that too is sure, can it be done? But can someone be really good at it with a lot of practice? Yes, they can be much better.
Yeah.
They can be much, much better. And that ebbs and flows. I mean, think about like I shot competitive archery for a while, and now you're a much better compound shooter than I am. I just don't shoot that much, you know? So, there's lots of factors to it.
But then when the moment happens.
Before a hunt, man, I practice a lot.
Yes.
Like I do not screw around. Like I am not leaving something up to chance. For me, it means enough, and I don't want that era. I would have a very hard time looking back and feeling like
You could have done more.
Prepare myself and my weapon correctly for that. Maybe I failed on it, with other attributes, but that's not going to be one of them.
But the difference
it is in
is
my control, so I'll get it done.
With you, if I'm sitting behind you and you're through the scope, or I'm standing behind you and you draw your bow back, there is no doubt in my mind that thing's going down. You know what I mean? But that's because you have put in practice over these years. Yeah, life gets busy. I don't shoot my bow as much as I'd like to shoot my bow, but you've done enough practice over the years that shooting 2 months before your season, you can get back up to that
Oh, for
level.
sure.
You know what I mean?
But
Like when you
you've done
first
lots
start.
of legwork.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And that's, I think, something that maybe someone new doesn't see. It's like someone who's shot a bow for 15 years
Yeah.
can get proficient very quickly.
Yeah.
Someone who's not shot a bow their whole life can get, better than average
Yeah.
pretty quickly, but there's just so much missing. You
Yeah.
know, there's just, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Those two things are just not the same.
For sure. But yeah, if you're getting into bow hunting, shoot a lot. I mean, same with rifle hunting. It is
All
important.
of it. I think every single
Yeah.
weapon you should be shooting a lot with,
Same
practicing with. And
muzzleloaders, like it's on an open sight muzzleloader, you're dialing your load by, I mean, you're removing a couple grains of powder. You're really trying to dial your load. And the only way to get to that point is to shoot. You got to shoot, you know?
Yeah. And I guess just to hammer back to the same point again, it's like, we're not doing that until we're really proficient.
Yeah.
You're not changing a grain on a black powder rifle that gets you from a 6-inch group to a 1-inch group if you can't shoot a 3-inch group consistently. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be good before you start making changes. Even with archery and all that kind of stuff, it's like, man, your equipment can be garbage, and you can get pretty proficient and competent with it to a point, you know, where then you start making the changes. Is it worth doing a bit of both? Yes, but don't get into the rabbit hole of like these tiny nuances without putting in the work first, which is just being proficient, actually being consistent, being a good shot. And it's measurable as well, right? It's not like it's not just guesswork, right?
You see.
There's a target that tells a tale, you know, at the end of it. And of course, here we're on this topic as well. There are some crap shots that are great hunters.
Yeah.
There are. There just are.
And there's some great shots that are crap hunters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Target panic or whatever they call it, you know. But yeah,
I mean, I've got a couple buddies who are terrible shots and they're killers.
Yeah.
They kill stuff. So it's not all that. Just I'm not prepared to leave it up to chance. I don't want to be a crap shot.
Yeah.
And then hunt something and have that known flaw present itself every now and then.
Because you knew you should have prepared. And the whole time, even going into that hunt, the week before that hunt, you're going to be like, should have shot more, should have shot more, should have shot. And it's just going to keep running through your head.
Never thought that.
No?
No, I've never
I mean,
thought that.
no. I guess I've never felt that. Yeah. But
I know what you mean.
Like if you don't practice, you're going to, because
like studying for an exam that you never studied for. You're like, I wish I'd have.
Yeah. And that's the thing is it doesn't happen to me with shooting because I am very anal about shooting, but with other things that could happen too, where you're like, I didn't prepare the way, because I was really nervous about my moose hunt in the shape that I was in. Because I going in, that was one thing that really bothered me going in. That's when I'm really cutting ounces and I'm pulling stuff out of my backpack. I'm like, I don't know that I'm strong enough to pack 7 miles into the wilderness. And then I got in there, everything was great. I was in the shape that less than I would have liked, but in good enough shape to do everything that I wanted to do. But leading into that hunt, I was very nervous. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just lots of factors, man. It's lots of factors.
Yeah.
What else we got on there?
Let's see. I think we kind of touched on everything we had there. I mean, we already talked about justifying your mistakes to yourself. Yeah. Shooting multiple animals on one tag. Yeah. I think we covered it all. I mean, is there any other ethics that you can think of that you think we didn't cover of public land? We basically got, don't be a dick, be honest with yourself, keep evolving in your ethics and make a determination that you can live with.
Yeah, build a group of people around you too that share that.
Yeah, and that you admire.
Part of ethics that's shared for sure. Yeah, and I think for the greater good of hunting as it evolves, that's what we need. We do need, that shared as a community a bit more. Hold people a bit more accountable is another factor. Maybe not always, but we're not doing ourselves favors by just turning a blind eye to stuff that's not cool.
Like, yeah. But you got to be careful too. Like I said, we just can't be too divisive with each other because, yeah, we're not in a great spot in Colorado right now, which is very unfortunate. And we really need to band together.
Yeah. These banning, we got fur issues going on. We got predator hunting under attack. All hunting's under attack to some degree. And yeah, for sure. I mean, the other thing that comes into the ethics a little bit for me is animal utilization, the meat, right? How you care for it. That's an ethic, right?
Yeah.
That's another factor that, I'll be honest, not all Western hunters are the strongest at that. Do they value the meat as much as everything else? Is it as much a part of the process to them as a big rack and stuff like that? I also think there's a couple of people in this boat where it's not just that you've got these trophy hunters that are out here killing big things. Some are more willing to preserve the meat, care for it, value it than others are.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we need to be stronger at. I see no advantage whatsoever for people that don't like, and I get it with lots of stuff. You know, you get cattle ranchers that are keen. I know elk hunters who don't even like elk meat, elk guides, keen elk guides. It's like, do I understand a personal preference? Yes, but I see no benefit to hunting as a whole if our ethics aren't pretty strong on respecting the animal's meat value, taking care, and that goes from taking care of it in the field, that takes, take care of it after. Obviously, we've got some big differences. Me being the hyena is a little bit of a,
he's a stretch, and that,
maybe it's too much. Maybe it's too much.
I don't think you can.
But
ever
I don't
do
think I
too
hurt
much.
anything by.
No, absolutely not. It can't be too much. Like for you to take organs and stuff like that, it can't be too much. But Field Ethos had this shirt and I never got it and I really wanted it. It was a big 7-point bowl that was separated like they do the pig or the cow diagrams, and it said trophy eater. And I'm like, I love that because that's me, right? Like I am specifically targeting old animals, big animals. Am I going to eat that thing?
Same.
You bet your ass.
Yeah, same.
Right. So that's something to consider. You don't need to be a meat hunter or a trophy hunter. You can be a trophy eater.
100%. Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's flack on that from both sides. And this goes to our whole argument of ethics, range, weapon choice. There's each side attacks each other a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because there's, they just do. It's kind of a. You've got people that are just meat hunters, so shooting does that are upset about trophy hunting, right? But it's like you can eat the rest of it, and people do, right?
Exactly.
So why give them a bad rap? It's kind of like they're like, well, I'll never be a trophy hunter because you can't eat the horns. Like, fair enough, you can't eat the horns, but don't pretend like they're not eating the animal. Same with someone who's not proficient with their weapons. Like, well, I don't shoot anything over 20 yards, so screw everyone else that shoots long range. It's like, well. That's not totally fair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's, it's funny how, people are curious creatures.
I know, and everybody kind of like divides themselves into a camp. But I mean, that's fine. As long as that's something you can live with, just don't down tag people. If somebody wants to get a cow or elk tag, by all means, that's totally fine by me. That doesn't mean that I'm going to, but that's.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, likewise, someone who wants to get a bull tag, shoot the biggest bull they possibly can, and it equally values the meat just as much as if it was a cow tag. Well, fair enough. That's totally fine.
Exactly.
And from some management perspectives, it's actually some argument to be made for what's actually beneficial.
They taste better if they're huge.
Yeah. There is something about a tenderloin from a giant.
Yeah, exactly.
Does hit a little different.
Yeah, it does. That's funny. Yeah, trophy eater. So if you there's room over here in this camp if you guys want to get into the trophy eater camp here. You don't have to take the organs. You can if you want. No, that's awesome. And this is another opportunity for people to. I'll try to post some of these videos on social media, but I'd like to see some comments about your experiences or your ethics or things that you think people should be looking at, because we're not perfect. We're still evolving. We're still growing. There is some things that we are firm on, and there's some things that are moving constantly.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to hear some short stories of
Yeah.
some of the crazy, bad encounters
Okay.
you've had in
That's
the
a good-
woods,
so
and also the very best ones. Like, what just amazing thing happened
Yeah.
in regards to this whole discussion? I'd love to hear it.
Okay, this is so on that note, let's do some story readings in one of these next podcasts. We're gonna pick a
there'll be some
couple
wild ones.
Yeah, we're gonna pick a couple good ones. So email your story to wolverineandthewarthog@gmail.com, and we're gonna pick a couple of them that are our favorites. But we'd love to hear some of these, because now we can kind of look back on it and laugh. Were you pissed at the time? Hell yeah, it takes a little bit for that sting to burn off even. But yeah, I'd love to hear some of those stories. So send them over, and then put your permission in the email. If you want us to share your name, great. If you don't, great. Just let us know. We'd be happy to do it anonymously too. But we'll probably be reading stories and cracking up for an hour before we finally.
Yeah, there could be some good ones in there.
Yeah. So
Yeah, well, it's been fun.
yeah, that's awesome, guys. Thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you next week.
As usual. Yeah. Like, subscribe, share it.
Comment.
Later.